Now, I'm gonna say this now, and I know I'm gonna sound like a feminist or something, but one of the most dangerous things on this planet is, I gotta be honest, it's man. Male, alpha males, or whatever you guys want to call yourselves, we are considerably, I want to say, almost the most dangerous things on the planet. And this story will forever, let's just say, make me feel really worried about how mankind has turned into, well, straight monsters, I guess. But before anything, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. Now, I know the introduction was way too deep and way too dark, and honestly, you guys can take it however way you want, but today's story is not about me, you know, treating a woman as if she's an object, because I know 80% of the stories on this channel is always about me doing the devil's tango. But you gotta understand one thing about these stories is that when I was a younger high schooler, or even a child almost, I was able to do these things because I had one thing that most men don't understand. It's called consent. Now, I remember back when I was in high school, it was my sophomore year of grade 10, and one day when I was walking throughout my school, I saw something. I saw a teacher that I never recognized. Now, it's really weird when I don't recognize a teacher because I've been in trouble so many times in high school to the point where I almost met every teacher because I was always getting caught by somebody. But for some reason, when I was walking around the school, I saw this one teacher that I never saw before. He was a pretty scrawny dude, and I won't lie, he was, well, let's just say, still struggling with his V card. And one thing I will say is that for some reason, he had this really anger look in his eye at all times. It was super weird and super freaky. So as I was walking past him, I was just saying in my head, oh, I hope I don't get that teacher. Then I remember when I was going throughout my school day on the third block of school, I remember I ended up going inside a classroom, and there he was. He was there being a substitute teacher for my other teacher that was gone, I guess, for some reason. I have no idea why teachers leave, to be honest. It makes no sense, but it is what it is. I remember I basically sat down in my class, and basically this guy was teaching us. And one thing I realized when he was teaching us is that he would always choose favorites. And don't get me wrong, having favorites as a teacher is like a no-brainer. Like, every teacher has favorites. No matter how many times they say, oh, I promise class, I do not have favorites. They usually have favorites. But this guy, he was very obvious when he had favorites. And one thing about him is that he always leaned towards the women in our classroom. And it wasn't even like the girl was trying to be his favorite. It was just he automatically would always choose the same people and give out the same treats to the same people every single time. In my mind, I thought this guy was maybe like sexist or something. So I was like, okay, whatever. Like, you know, he doesn't like guys. It doesn't matter to me. But then one thing I realized is that every day, like literally right after school, he would always hold one student back, one of the girls in my class. And I have no idea why. In my mind, I thought maybe they were failing the class or something, and you know, it's whatever. So I remember one day after school when he said, Delora, can you stay after class? Thank you. I remember I kind of just looked at her and I just ended up, you know, getting up and walking away. When I walked away, my locker wasn't far from the classroom. So I remember I ended up walking up to my locker. I started unlocking it, and literally in the next 2 seconds, not even like a millisecond, like 2 seconds later, I see her running out of the classroom crying. I have no idea why. It seems super weird, but as she was running away, she was zipping up her jacket that she was wearing earlier. It made no sense to me why she was freaking out and crying. And, you know, me being a dumb guy that I was back in high school, I didn't think to ask. That's the thing about high schoolers. They always keep to themselves unless it's like drama that they can like jump on. But if it's something that's actually like severe and actually like emotional that takes empathy, yeah, I'm sorry, no kid's gonna really care. At least that was my case in my high school. Anyways, going on, I remember basically I found that really odd, and I remember even checking into the classroom, and when I looked inside the classroom, I just see the guy, the teacher, sitting on his chair cross-legged and just kind of looking like he was thinking about something. He literally looked like one of those movie villains you guys would see in like the movies, like trying to like make his next move. It seems so scary to me and seems super weird, but honestly, I just pretended I didn't see anything, and I just kept going on with my day. So this went on for, I want to say, almost like 2 weeks back to back of just girls like basically seeing him after class and stuff. And it got to the point where, I won't lie to you, girls even stopped showing up to the class. Now at that point, obviously something's gone wrong. It made no sense why so many students would transfer classes or even go to the point of not showing up to school. So either this guy made them, you know, change their mind about the class, or basically he scarred them for life. That was the only two options. I couldn't think of any other reason. So I remember I ended up going to my buddy of mine and saying, yo bro, this new teacher, he's weird. Didn't like half the chicks leave in this class? And then I remember he looked at me and he said, I don't know bro, like for some reason people are saying he's like a freak or something. I don't know man, but it doesn't make sense because like, you know, all the girls liked him at first and then now they don't. Like, I don't understand. He was like favoriting them, wasn't he? And when he said that, it was true. I didn't understand the point. So I remember basically me and my friend, we decided to go and do a stakeout. If you guys don't know what stakeouts are, basically, no, we weren't outside the classroom cooking steaks, as much as I wish we were doing that. We were basically sitting around the classrooms trying to see what was going on. Why would this thing even happen? It doesn't make any sense. So I remember me and my buddy were sitting outside the classroom and we were just, you know, eating food and just chilling and just watching that door to see what comes in and what goes out other than us. And I remember basically as we were sitting there, out of nowhere, I want to say like towards after school one day, he ended up coming out of the classroom. And this was the first time we seen him actually out of the classroom. So I remember basically when I saw him walk out of the classroom, I decided to tail him. I was following him and my buddy ended up texting me saying, yo, I'm gonna check the classroom and see what's going on in there. You just follow him, see what he's doing. I said, okay, whatever. And then I remember basically as I was following him, I ended up following him towards the cafeteria. Now the cafeteria was near the football field that we had because like literally right out through the doors was the football field. So I remember I would basically just kind of like sit there at the cafeteria looking like above because like there was like upper seating in the cafeteria we had. And I was just looking down watching him trying to see what was he doing? Why was he being so weird? And then that's when it happened. I remember there was a student, aka one of the cheerleaders that was previously on the football field going to the change room after cheer practice. And instantly, and I mean instantly, once the teacher saw this girl walking by to go to the change rooms, the teacher stood up, had this evil grin in his look as if something bad was gonna happen, and literally decided to follow her. At that point, I knew I had to be fast. So I remember I started rushing down the stairs and started basically tailing him as fast as I could. And it got to the point where I ended up turning into the hallway where all the change rooms were and no one was there. I was so confused and I was looking around like, wait, what? Where'd they go? And then afterwards, I hear the door kind of just close. At that point, I remember I ended up, you know, going up to the door and putting my ear towards the girl's change room. And then that's when I heard it. I literally out of nowhere heard this girl saying, I started freaking out. I'm like, okay, this is not good. So I remember I ended up actually opening the change room door, ended up going inside the girl's change room, and that's when I saw him holding the girl by her neck towards the wall. At that point, I'm like, hey, what are you doing there? And then afterwards, I remember he ended up letting go of the girl, freaking out and looking at me saying, you can't say anything. And he ended up actually running into me and pushing me up against the wall and actually hurting my back really bad. At this point, he was actually punching my gut and punching my stomach. And then I remember my buddy, who was a friend of mine that was helping me earlier with the stakeout, ended up coming into the change room as well because he magically knew I was there for some reason. I think it's because we actually like track each other on our phones and stuff. And basically, he ended up going up behind the guy and literally slamming him down to the ground and punching his face out. Literally punching the teacher's face out as this girl was just freaking out in the back saying, I don't know what he was doing. I don't know what's going on. This girl did not know what was going on at all. But at that point, I knew what was going on. This guy was a straight up pedo. Like he was a freak, dude. So I remember as my friends just punching this guy out, I decided to walk up to the girl and say, hey, listen, do you want me to call the police? Honestly, if you guys are wondering why I asked that question to the girls, because not a lot of girls want to like tell the cops like some traumatizing things that happened to them. And honestly, I don't blame them. Like sometimes, you know, it's too hard to open up about something that's really, well, scary, I guess. But basically, she ended up saying, you know what? Yeah, just call them. Just call them. And she was okay with it. So I ended up calling 911. And afterwards, you know, the whole situation was figured out. This guy, he had like a full-on record of doing this stuff apparently in other schools. And I'm surprised he even got to teach at our school. And then afterwards, after the situation was figured out and this guy ended up going inside the police car arrested, the girl walked up to me and said, I have a question. How do you know that the teacher was gonna do that in the first place? I ended up looking at her and saying, honestly, me and my buddy were just following him because he seemed like a freak. And yeah, we just kind of figured out what he was doing. And that wasn't even the worst part. Afterwards, I remember the teachers ended up going inside the classroom and my buddy ended up showing them all the stuff he had in a drawer, which was all photos of girls that were literally like printed out in our printing class for like photos and stuff. Yeah, apparently he had a ton of photos of girls that were in that class. And all I'm gonna say is that honestly, if I wasn't there that day, what would have happened to that girl? And what happened to all the other girls? I don't know. It's not my story to tell, at least. Anyways, guys, that's basically it for today's story. Make sure to do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like I always say, just follow for more embarrassing but crazier stories, I guess. Peace out, guys.